We have with us now next Dr. Tushar Grover, another proficient surgeon specializing in cataract, cornea and refractive in Vision Eye Center, Delhi, with his teaching Pearl. On to you, Dr. Tushar.
Thank you, ma'am. Grateful to you for having me in the webinar. So I'll be presenting some capsulotopy mishaps. I hope I'm audible.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, so I'll be presenting some capsulotopy mishaps that were performed by my trainees. So it's a tough transition for us. You know, we were trainees a couple of years back, trying to learn to manage our own complications, and now having to, confidently manage other people's complications. So I'll be presenting 3 case scenarios where the issue was with the capsular excess. So the first case, as you can see, the trainee here has gone in the wrong plane, is rubbing with the viscocannula against the iris, and then in fact goes under the anterior capsule and injects viscoelastic right there. So you end up having...
Oh, your video is not showing. Video is not playing.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Our video is not.
Now is it visible?
Yeah.
You just said it's paused, so I won't go full screen then. I'm sorry. Yeah. I'll just start this case from the beginning if that's okay. So this is the first case where you can see the trainee goes in the wrong plane, rubs against the iris, and then in fact goes under the anterior capsule and injects viscoelastic there instead of injecting under the air bubble. So you see this tear happening in the anterior capsule, which you normally expect in like an intuitively mature cataract. So I went ahead and I gave Nix on both sides of the anterior capsule, and I did a sort of a manual rhexis in this area so that I could have a circular opening in the center. And now I have an adequate central opening. It was a soft cataract, so I decided to do a deep enough but narrow trench, separated into 2 heminuclei. And after that, this case was easy. What was important is to, of course, make sure there was minimal manipulation, make sure I don't grab any of the capsular tear edges. And post that, of course, the parameters were all kept low. The bottle height as well as the vacuum settings were low. And carefully cortical aspiration was also done. So while injecting the IOL, again, it's extremely important to be careful because you can have the capsulotomy going posteriorly, and also important to make sure that the haptic edges are away from the torn capsule. So this is the second case where the trainee has gone a little wider with the diameter, but she's doing fine here till the capsule reaches the main wound where it begins to come out. And then you see it going peripherally and it's gone into the zonules. So here, I know I have a big capsular diameter, so I decided to do a gentle hydrodissection and prolapse one pole out of the capsular bag. That's because I have a big capsular opening and a small nucleus. So subsequently, I did phacoemulsification slightly anterior to the bag here because I know it's a soft nucleus. I don't expect much endothelial trauma to happen. And here again, extremely gently, the cortical aspiration was also done, doing the area where the extension is there towards the end, making sure I don't grab any of those flaps that are hanging there. And again here, placing the IOL in the bag extremely gently and making sure that the haptic edge is away from the torn capsule. So this is the third case where the trainee has gone a little small in terms of the diameter of the rhexis. And she begins to struggle when she has to close the flap here. Close the capsular rhexis here. And as you can see, it's gone peripheral now. She tries to inject viscoelastic to rescue it, but the capsular flaps have gone peripherally. So here I decided to do extremely gentle chops, slightly peripheral and small chops because I don't want any pressure to be exerted at the area of the capsular tears. And you can see that there are these flaps which are everted, they're mobile, they're fluttering. So all of these are signs that the capsular tears have not gone posteriorly, at least as of now. And then I did the phacoemulsification in the central safe zone, making sure I don't grab any of these flaps. And the rest of the procedure was quite routine with slightly reduced parameters. And also important to make sure that there are no fluctuations in the anterior chamber depth here because you don't want, again, pressure fluctuations causing extension of the tear posteriorly. And Then again, here the cortical aspiration and the placement of the IOL was done as a routine as in the previous cases. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Tushar. Dr. Grover, are you there? Oh, Grover is there. Not Grover, I'm sorry, Gaurav. Gaurav, I wanted to ask, now this turned out to be a soft cataract, the second case, which she brought it up supracapsular and did the phaco and managed to do it. Supposing it's a hard cataract, that kind of a case, would you continue to avoid rotation, lateral separation carefully, continue to do phaco, or would you actually ever think of converting? Is one question. Second question is, what would be the IOL of choice?
So, ma'am, I think what you're saying is very important, because if a surgeon is confident and comfortable doing phaco and is very experienced, he could probably proceed with the case. And yes, you said very hard cataracts. So I have done hard cataracts where there have been rhexis complications and broken rhexis and all. But that should not be the take-home message, because there will be surgeons of all different stages of their career who may find who may think that it's okay to continue with a phaco in a cataract where you've had a bad capsular rhexis damage. So while it can be done, just like the small pupil case where it can be done, but the take-home message is that you should probably not, unless you are an expert in phaco handling such complications. But then the second part which you said is that if I had to continue, I would probably do something which would debulk the nucleus as well. So lateral separation, and if it's a brown cataract, having doing a direct chop probably might may cause you to have more separation. So I may do a stop and chop so that you have a trench and you've debulked the nucleus a little bit, and then gentle separation, and then making sure that you have enough space. You've created space for yourself in the bag before you try to do those chopping maneuvers inside. So it is possible to do that as long as you're not putting stress on the bag. Second thing I would think is that choice of lens. I noticed probably, and maybe I'm not right, is that a hydrophilic lens at one point where, it may open up in a little more uncontrolled way. And, it might, if you're planning to put it in the bag, it's fine. But if you end up needing to put it in the sulcus for some reason, it may not be a great choice. And again, also that, you would probably want to do a 3-piece lens here if possible. That would give you the choice of keeping it either in the bag or in the sulcus, or later on if you would like to fixate it in some way because you've already had a broken rhexis, and later if you would like to, kind of use it for a SF IOL or a glued IOL, that IOL would still give you choices. So I think in all these cases, I used to be very fond of putting single-piece lenses too, but of late, last few years, I've switched to putting 3-piece, which I don't enjoy putting, but I think they're more sensible to put.
Only thing, it may be in the sulcus, it may be in the bag. One haptic in the sulcus, you have to be. Anaga, what do you want to add to this situation?
It was very good scenarios that have been shown, and what is important is, like, for example, in the second case where they were trying to bring it towards the end, there was a little shallowing of the chamber. If you're especially doing it through the main port, there is a lot of leakage from the main incision, and that shallowing suddenly causes the rhexis to run out.
Yes.
So I think what is important is, if you feel that the is shallowing, you should put in more viscoelastic, go in through the side port, see that the main incision is not leaky, so that at the end, in the last quarter, you're still having a good rhexis. I think very well managed cases. But
very valid point, Anaga. Any other thoughts before we move to the next case?
Can I say?
Yes,
can I say?
Of course. Actually,
I think we saw very interesting cases, and they are the common situations and common mistakes which are being done by the surgeons, evolving surgeon during the training phase. What I would like to add over here, a couple of things, is that the incision can be changed. The location from where we are doing the surgery can be changed, because in the second case, where the rhexis has extended, in that region, you are doing the surgery from that region only. So once you come out, and then the chances of extension of this tear to the periphery, to the posterior plate, posterior capsule is very, very likely. So we can go and move it on the opposite other side and make another incision tunnel from where we can operate. Secondly, we should do chopping, and in the third case, the extension of the rhexis was right on the opposite end, at the opposite end. So there again, there is a high chance that while doing a lateral separation, we can extend the capsule tear to the posterior plate. So these are the things that we can change the position, and we should do the phacoemulsification in the area where the capsular tear is not there. And secondly, like in cases of posterior polar cataract, we should, when we remove the instrument, when we come out of the anterior chamber, we should fill the anterior chamber with viscoelastic before removing, like we do it in posterior polar cataract, so that there is no chance of extension. Rest has been very nicely, included by Dr. Gaurav.
Okay,
And
thank
just,
you. Yes, yes.
Great cases, Tushar. I mean, I hope your trainees realize that, in a case like Argentinian flag sign, like what you saw in the first case, though it looks much more dramatic, they're
Yeah.
safer in those situations rather than when the rhexis runs off only in one particular meridian.
That's true.
Because when it's diametrically opposite, the chances of the rhexis wrapping around is much less. Sometimes I even advocate that, you create a small neck in the opposite meridian so that the wraparound chances are less. And as was again demonstrated in your second case, in these softer cases, it's always a good idea to prolapse the entire nucleus into the anterior chamber. So there's no stretching of the capsular bag at all. And you do anterior chamber phacoemulsification, especially in these softer cataracts. In case it's a hard cataract, not possible to prolapse it out, as Gaurav was mentioning, I would, in these situations, shift rather to a stop and chop rather than continue with a direct chop. And as was mentioned, you just have to make sure that your splitting is not along the axis of where the rhexis runoff is. And as far as the forces are not transmitted in that direction, you are able to generally prevent a wraparound.
Thank you very much. Thanks a lot, Tushar. So